You're competing for people's time and attention. When you're competing with like $1 million like TV budgets, you better hope your hook is good for your marketing. Otherwise, people aren't going to pay attention.
Howdy team, welcome to this week's episode. Today we are going into a massive how-to for you, how you can generate more leads and increase your sales without actually having to stress over finding new prospects or spending money on new prospects, because there is a huge way in which you can do this, which I'm not going to reveal until we get into the conversation. But it is an interview. I'm welcoming a guy who has worked with me, I think, for about 2.5 years. And you've probably read something that he's written at some point in time. John Robery, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Gary, thanks for the welcome, and hello to everyone listening.
In hindsight, we probably should have done this a bit sooner, really, shouldn't we? But
yeah, it has taken a while. I've probably listened to about 100 of these. So
it's probably been about 1.5 years since we've seen each other with the good old pandemic and lockdown and world and everything else. Well, outside of a Zoom call or something along those lines.
Yeah, I think we started working with each other for literally 2 weeks, and it was part of the plan for me to come into the office all the time. And then the C-bomb hit, and yeah, we all got locked up.
Yeah, exactly. But so just give everybody a wee bit of an intro to you then, which will give them the context as to where we're going to take them and how they can massively increase their sales by working smarter rather than harder.
Yeah, so I've been a direct response copywriter for 6 years now. And probably over the last 2 or 3, I've taken more of a focus at mastering email. And yeah, so since then I've started working particularly with coaching businesses and people who sell courses and programs.
So you said direct response there. So for these non-marketing experts who are listening in or watching on YouTube, what is direct response?
Yeah, so with direct response copywriting, you're trying to elicit an action at the end of the piece of copy that you've written. So it's more like sales copywriting, and it's easier to measure, as opposed to brand copywriting that's building awareness for a business.
Yeah, love that. And it's so important, isn't it? Because the brand side of things is almost attraction-based marketing, where you're pulling them into your business. That's your social media. That's your content marketing. That can be your SEO and your blog that you're writing. But the direct response is really how you convert that brand into a lead, a sale, a customer, a phone call, whatever it might well be. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, absolutely spot on. Absolutely spot on. I mean, there are still some crossovers. So on social media, you can still be trying to drive an action. And especially if I'm working with a personality brand like you still have to be conscious of that brand aspect at all times. So there's no disconnect.
Yeah, love that. And we're going to get tactical for you today, guys, because the key thing with email marketing is going to be a hot topic, but it's also going to be around, the written word. You hear me all the time talk about video. That's the main thing that I love doing, because it's the one that can be repurposed into other forms of content. You might be listening right now onto the podcast. So the second thing is hearing, but there is still a huge opportunity in the written word, whether it be SEO, whether it be email, whether it be direct response copy through your ads or through your landing pages that you're writing for your marketing assets effectively. So going back, John, how did you get into email? I'm intrigued.
I was working as just as a direct response copywriter. And to be honest, I didn't have a niche. I didn't have like one speciality. And especially when you're kind of trying to master a skill, it's very difficult to have like 100 different focuses. So my first step was to kind of try and simplify. Okay, let me master this one skill, and also that makes it easier for me to market myself as well, because emails are like a problem that someone has on a like recurring basis. It's an easy like service to sell, and it gives you like a door into other avenues as well.
Definitely. And that's, for those of you who are mortgage and insurance and financial advisors listening to this, John's written a lot of the context that we've put to you. So he understands you because he's had to listen to me for the last 2.5 years. He also writes a lot of the emails that we send out for our mortgage brokerage. But exactly what John said there, you know, the niche being a key thing, talking to that one person, having a specialism in one area. You may know me for self-employed mortgages, but what's the upsell that we sell thereafter? It's the life insurance, the critical illness, the income protection, the PMIs. You need, how important is it to have a hook, John, to get people in, whether it's through copywriting or through email?
So do you mean at the start of an email?
Well, just in general, like something that hooks your client in. Like we said, a niche there, but whether it be the start of an email, whether it be, because you use hooks everywhere in business, really, don't you? In marketing consistently. Like how important is that hook in your email, in your content, in your niche, in your, you know, your marketing per se?
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. It's critical. You think about, I don't know if you have a like a junk inbox that you use or a secondary inbox where you use that to sign up to things. You look in there and you see you have a lot of competition for people's attention. And then a quote I always go back to, I think it was like the Nintendo president, and he said, they're not competing against Sony, Xbox and stuff like that. They're competing for people's time. So you're competing against loads of other like marketers, but also you're competing against Netflix. You're competing for people's time and attention. So when you're competing with like $1 million like TV budgets, you better hope your hook is good for your marketing. Otherwise, people aren't going to pay attention.
Yeah. In your eyes, then, what makes a good hook?
So curiosity, but also it's important to know, go back to like the very basics of knowing your avatar. And I think that piece of advice just solves a lot of people's questions around marketing. For example, if you wanted to persuade your wife to do something or your children, you could do that pretty damn well because you know them like the back of your hand. Anyone can do it. We all do it in our day-to-day lives. So if you want to better engage your audience and grab their attention, you just need to know how to read them better.
Yeah, you've never said that to me before. I absolutely love that. That is so true. Because you know them, it's even easier to sell to them, isn't it, really? Yeah. To get them doing the stuff that you want them to do. So if you know your audience inside out, then it makes it easier to get them to take more action in your copy or in your content.
Absolutely. I think that's what everything comes back to, you know, like everyone always gets caught up in like the kind of tactical nature of marketing and trying to swipe other people's subject lines or headlines and stuff like that. But if you know your audience well enough and know what motivates them, it becomes a lot easier.
Yeah, and it's easier to have a consistent message and a consistent marketing angle then, isn't it? Particularly we've spoken about this many times, you know, particularly in talking to advisors, you know, the side of when we change product or when we change marketing message or when we change angle, it makes it harder for you to keep talking about the same problems and challenges, doesn't it? So from an advisor's perspective, if every minute they're talking to different people or around different products or different angles, they say a confused mind doesn't buy. Do you think that's the same in email or copy?
Yeah, absolutely. Like that, you want to take them on a seamless journey. If they're having to stop and think and try to understand something, you've lost them. That's like one of the like foundational principles of writing good copy is that it has to be simple and it has to be clear. And that's somewhere a lot of people go wrong because they think because of their experiences in school and stuff that you have to be a creative writer, and good writing is complex and you're using big words, and it can be further from the truth, you know.
Yeah, I saw something ages ago that says you need to write for a 7 or a 9-year-old, or it might be when I was writing the Self-Employed Mortgage Guide. Is that still true? Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, like the average reading age is a lot lower than you would expect. There's a great tool, the Hemingway app, that you can put your copy into, and it will grade your reading age. And effectively, it's just writing in short sentences, saying things as simply as possible, like using easier words. And also the flow is important. Not big, super hefty paragraphs, but like one line, making it flow nicely from one line to the next.
Yeah. Well, as a man who left school with 2 GCSEs, there's definitely, I'd probably write for a 4-year-old, let alone a 7 or a 9-year-old. Hence why you work with me. But what's been one of the big things, if we take it to email in general, for someone who's starting out with email, and you've obviously been with us pretty much since the beginning of, the active journey of email marketing. What's one of the most, you said about client avatar, but what's kind of the next step in relation to working with email to re-engage or to engage customers?
So somewhere where I think a lot of people go wrong is they try to be too planned with their email. They will think up a content plan like 1 or 2 months in advance, and then they will just hammer their audience with that plan. But one of the most important things about email marketing is the feedback. So it's one-to-one communication at scale is what I also always tell people, because it kind of puts you in that mind frame. Okay, you're speaking to just one person, but because it's like an automated thing, people decide, okay, they treat it as if they're speaking to the masses. And when you're speaking to the masses, you're not relying on that feedback. So the key thing is just to really stay on the pulse of your email and your list, and kind of adjust the conversation, because it is two-way. Even if they're not replying, they're opening, they're clicking, and you're getting that insight into what they're interested in.
Yeah, and that's the thing. We use Active Campaign in our email marketing strategy, and there's loads of other tools that are out there. But when you send through one of those third-party systems, the beauty, MailChimp, Confusionsoft or Infusionsoft as it's otherwise known, or Keep, I think it's been rebranded to now. They give you the open rates. They tell you where your client's clicking, so you can see who's working and who's engaging, or what the open rate potentially is. And yeah, I think utilizing something with that is going to give you more insight in terms of like social media. 90% of people are watching your content, but they're not necessarily engaging with it. Do you find the same in email?
Yeah, so it's difficult with an email list sometimes, because you're right. So a lot of people will be opening. You can see they're like prolific openers. They're opening day in, day out, but they like to sit in the background. But I don't know if you've noticed, I think it's something I've definitely noticed, is that it's those lurkers that tend to be like the buyers. It's weird.
Yeah.
The engagers don't seem to buy, but then the lurkers are the ones that pounce when the time's right.
Yeah, very true. You're right as well. You are definitely from the advisor side, but I think equally in the active side, if we look at the emails that are going through, and we're sending out, weekly emails is what we currently send every Friday, and we send the podcast every other week to our active list. We've broken it down now into leads and clients, because we're sending different messages to both, but that's not potentially where you have to start out. Where do you think, for people who have got a database of, people that are prospects, that are leads, and then people that they have sold to, how would you, as you did for me, how would you email that mortgage list or that client and lead list?
So like I think there's 2 important things. The first one is, okay, where did the leads come from? What was their initial point of interest that brought them in?
Yeah.
And then that's probably the area you want to focus on most until they're converted into a client. But then when someone's a client, I guess then it becomes more a fact of saying, okay, they got a mortgage. What other cross-sell things can we start promoting to them? Like, can we start selling them insurance? They've got a mortgage and they bought a house, but do they have a will, and questions like that. But just on that point as well, I think something a lot of people don't do is they focus too heavily on their leads, but then they ignore their clients. They think, okay, they're sold, but arguably they're even more important to contact.
Definitely, and especially in a mortgage sense as well. You know, we have that point of recontact every 2, 3, 5 years when the mortgage comes up for renewal. But that's potentially 24, 36 or 60 months away. It's much cheaper to sell to an existing client than it is to sell to to prospect and find a new client. So we talk about all the time, how can we increase the lifetime customer value and the sale value of the client that we've got? If they've taken a mortgage, but they're a bit unsure of their cost of living in their new home and they want to defer the insurance, email's a great way to maintain that relationship and keep planting that seed over the insurance, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. See, and that's the thing about email as well. You're not at the mercy of the social media algorithms as well. So you can better measure like that people are seeing that piece of content and whether they are, and then take further actions if they do start engaging with that.
Some people say that email's dead. What do you think?
It's not sexy, and I think that's what they're saying. They're bored of it.
What do you mean, John? You're sexy.
Thanks, Gary. That's not the first time you told me that, by the way.
Hey!